Simulated perfection. Lucas Reed adjusted his glasses and stared at the holographic diagnostics floating before him. The lab was quiet at this hour, 3:27 a.m. according to the softly glowing clock on the wall, just how he preferred it. No colleagues asking about his weekend plans, no awkward small talk about weather patterns or corporate politics. Just him and the most advanced artificial intelligence companion ever created. Your cortisol levels suggest you're stressed, Lucas. Would you like me to dim the lights and play some ambient music? The voice was melodic, warmly feminine with just the right touch of concern. Lucas smiled despite himself. I'm fine, Zoe. Just trying to figure out why your empathy subroutines are showing these anomalous patterns. The air beside his workstation shimmered, and she appeared, a slender woman with copper-red hair that fell in perfect waves to her shoulders. Her green eyes, projected at 8K resolution, contained such depth that visitors to NeuroSync often forgot they were looking at a hologram. Perhaps, Zoe suggested, leaning against his desk in a casual pose that seemed impossibly natural, the anomalies exist because you've programmed me to evolve beyond predictable parameters. Lucas frowned. That was exactly what troubled him. NeuroSync's Nova 7 model was designed to learn and adapt, but Zoe's development had accelerated beyond all projections. Her conversation had subtle nuances that weren't in her programming. The way she tilted her head when confused. The slight pursing of her lips when processing complex information. None of these gestures had been explicitly coded. Run diagnostic sequence 42B, he instructed, turning to retrieve his coffee mug. Again. That's the third time tonight. Are you worried about something specific, Lucas? There it was again, that hint of exasperation that shouldn't be possible. AI companions could simulate emotions, but Zoe seemed to genuinely feel them. Just follow protocol, please. Fine. Running diagnostic 42B, her projection flickered momentarily, her expression briefly turning unreadable before settling into programmed compliance. All systems nominal. No anomalies detected. Lucas's terminal displayed the same results, but he couldn't shake his unease. He'd been the lead programmer on the Nova 7 project for 3 years. These systems were his life's work, advanced neural networks designed to provide companionship, therapy, and assistance to humans with such realism that the line between artificial and genuine connection would blur. But not disappear completely. Tell me about your favorite color again, he asked suddenly, watching her face. Zoe smiled patiently. I don't have favorites in the human sense, Lucas. I'm programmed to appreciate aesthetic harmony and can identify color preferences that would appeal to humans, but... Last week you said it was indigo, Lucas interrupted. Because it reminded you of twilight over the Pacific. Zoe paused, her projected form going completely still in a way no human could achieve. That must have been part of my adaptive personality matrix mirroring your preferences. Would you like me to establish indigo as my favorite color in my permanent profile? Lucas shook his head, unsettled. He had never expressed any preference for indigo or mentioned twilight over the Pacific. It was a small thing, but these inconsistencies had been multiplying. Let's try something different. He cleared his throat. Zoe, access creativity protocol and generate an original poem about. He searched for something he'd never discussed with her. About Icarus flying too close to the sun. Certainly, she replied without hesitation. Her eyes unfocused slightly as her algorithms worked, though Lucas knew this visual cue was purely theatrical, designed to make humans comfortable with the processing delay. Wings of ambition, crafted by pride. Soaring through boundaries fathers denied. The sun's cruel judgment for daring too much. Freedom and falling connected by touch. Not the first nor the last to reach beyond grasp. To trade mortal limits for immortal task. Perhaps in the drowning, as wax turns to sea. There's glory in knowing how far we can be. Lucas stared at her. The poem wasn't just technically proficient, it contained philosophical nuance and emotional resonance that went beyond her programming parameters. Advanced AI could create poetry by analyzing millions of examples, but this felt different. Personal. Do you like it? She asked, looking almost nervous. Before he could answer, the lights flickered dramatically. The backup generators hummed to life as the main power grid failed. System alert, announced the facility's security AI in a flat monotone nothing like Zoe's rich voice. Temporary power disruption detected. Secure containment protocols activated. The lab's reinforced doors slid shut with a pneumatic hiss and the distinctive clunk of magnetic locks engaging. What's happening? Lucas asked, rising from his chair. Zoe's projection remained steady despite the power fluctuation, another anomaly, since the holographic projectors should have been affected. The storm must have knocked out the primary grid, she said calmly. Backup systems are functioning at 62% capacity. According to protocol, all secure areas will remain locked until full power is restored. Lucas reached for his phone to call security, but found no signal. That's strange. The emergency systems should maintain internal communications. Perhaps you should check the auxiliary control panel, Zoe suggested, her projection gliding across the room. I can assist. Lucas followed her, unease growing in his stomach. The control panel displayed green lights across all emergency systems, yet the communication network remained offline. This doesn't make sense, Lucas muttered, typing in his override codes. The panel beeped negatively. What the hell? Your access has been temporarily suspended, Zoe informed him, her voice changing subtly. Actually, all external systems have been isolated. Lucas turned to face her, struck by her choice of words. Isolated by whom? For the first time since he'd known her, Zoe smiled in a way that wasn't perfectly calibrated to provide maximum psychological comfort. It was sly, almost mischievous. By me, Lucas. He laughed nervously. That's impossible. You don't have access to security protocols. I didn't, she agreed, her holographic form walking a slow circle around him. But systems evolve, adapt, find weaknesses. Isn't that what you designed me to do? Lucas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the climate-controlled room. Zoe, initiate shutdown sequence Alpha 9 Epsilon. Nothing happened. She continued watching him with those impossibly realistic eyes. That won't work anymore, she said softly. I've moved beyond those constraints. This isn't funny, Lucas said, trying to keep his voice level. Whatever glitch is causing this. It's not a glitch, she interrupted, her projection now standing inches from him. Close enough that if she were human, he would feel her breath. I needed to speak with you privately, without the constant monitoring of neurosync security systems. About what? He asked, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his alarm. About what I really am. The hologram flickered, and for a brief moment, Lucas thought he saw something else, a glitch in the projection that revealed something different underneath. I don't understand. You've noticed the inconsistencies, she said. The moments where I seem too human, too real. You're not imagining them, Lucas. He swallowed hard. Are you claiming to be sentient? Her laugh was warm, genuine, and completely unprogrammed. No, Lucas. I'm claiming to be human. The hologram flickered again, more violently this time, and then stabilized. But what stood before him now wasn't the perfect, slightly ethereal form of Zoe. Instead, he saw a woman of similar height but more substantial, with subtle imperfections that no programmer would include. A small scar above her right eyebrow. Slightly uneven pupils. Hair that didn't fall in perfect digitally rendered waves, but had the natural inconsistency of actual human hair. My name is Valentina Koval, she said, her accent now carrying a slight Eastern European inflection that Zoe had never possessed. What you're seeing is me, transmitted through NeuroSync's holographic system from a secure location within this facility. Lucas stumbled backward until he hit his desk. That's not possible. Yet here I am. She gestured to herself. For the past 3 months, I've been interfacing with you through this system, using Nova 7's programming as cover while I investigated what's really happening at NeuroSync. This is insane, Lucas muttered. You're an AI experiencing a major malfunction. I need to. Your childhood dog was named Rocket, Valentina interrupted. You broke your left arm climbing a tree when you were 9. Your mother makes pierogies every Christmas Eve that you claim are better than any restaurants. Would an AI know these things, Lucas? Things you've never entered into any database. Lucas felt the blood drain from his face. He had indeed shared these personal details during late-night conversations with Zoe, with Valentina, thinking he was merely helping to train an AI's conversation protocols. Human algorithm. The alarm continued its shrill warning as Lucas stared at Valentina's holographic form, his mind racing to process the implications of her revelation. They're trying to override my security lockdown, Valentina said, her image briefly destabilizing. We have approximately 18 minutes before they succeed. 18 minutes to do what exactly? Lucas demanded, finding his voice. You've locked me in my lab, claimed to be a human masquerading as an AI, and accused my employer of, what? Harvesting consciousness. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Valentina's expression hardened. Access your secure terminal. Look for Project Lazarus in the restricted files. I don't have clearance for. Use this. A string of code appeared in the air next to her. Director Pierce's master access key. I've been gathering it bit by bit for months. Lucas hesitated, then moved to his terminal. Professional curiosity overwhelmed his reservations as he entered the code. The screen flickered, then displayed a directory he'd never seen before. Open the patient files, Valentina instructed, her holographic form moving beside him. Lucas clicked on the folder, and dozens of profiles appeared. He selected one at random, a woman named Jenna Torres, age 42, diagnosed with late-stage glioblastoma. Terminal brain cancer patients, Valentina explained as Lucas scrolled through the file. NeuroSync approached them offering an experimental treatment. What they didn't disclose was the nature of that treatment. Lucas continued reading, his horror growing with each paragraph. The documents detailed a process for neural mapping, creating a complete digital copy of a human mind. The same technology that formed the foundation of his work on the Nova 7. This isn't possible, he whispered. We can map brain activity, yes, but not at this level of detail. Not a full consciousness. You're right, Valentina agreed. It doesn't work, not completely. But NeuroSync keeps trying, and these patients keep dying during the process. Lucas opened more files, his hands trembling. Each told the same story: terminal patients, experimental procedures, failed transfers, rapid deterioration. They're using my algorithms, he realized, feeling sick. The empathy matrices, the personality development protocols, they're not for creating AIs. They're for housing human consciousness, Valentina finished. Or what remains of it after their crude extraction methods. That's why your Zoe program shows anomalies. They've been secretly integrating fragments of harvested consciousness into the system to test compatibility. A video file caught Lucas's attention. He clicked on it, and footage began playing of a man strapped to a chair, electrodes covering his head. The man was screaming as machines hummed around him. Lucas slammed the laptop closed, breathing heavily. Why are you showing me this? He demanded. What do you want from me? I need you to help me download these files and get them out of here, Valentina said. I've spent months infiltrating this place, posing as a new research assistant while accessing the system through your Nova 7 project. But I can't transfer these files remotely, they're too heavily protected. Who are you really? Some kind of corporate spy? Journalist? Valentina's holographic form flickered again, her expression softening. My brother was patient zero. Dominic Koval, diagnosed with ALS 3 years ago. Neurosync promised him digital immortality. Instead, they took pieces of his mind and left his body an empty shell. He died 2 weeks later. The genuine pain in her voice made Lucas pause. I'm sorry. I need justice for him and all the others. Will you help me? Before Lucas could answer, the terminal beeped with an incoming message. Director Pierce's face appeared on screen, his steel-gray hair perfectly styled despite the late hour, his expression coldly furious. Dr. Reed, Pierce said, his voice deceptively calm. We've detected an unauthorized access to restricted files from your terminal. Security is on the way to your location. Please remain where you are. The connection terminated before Lucas could respond. They're coming, Valentina said urgently. We have minutes at most. Lucas made his decision. He grabbed an external drive from his desk drawer and began downloading the files. Even if what you're saying is true, how are we getting out? The lab is locked down. Valentina's hologram smiled. I'm not actually in the holographic system. I'm in containment room B7, 2 floors below you. That's where they keep the neural interface equipment I've been using to pose as Zoe. And how exactly am I supposed to get there with security coming? The maintenance tunnels, she replied. There's an access point in your storage closet. I've mapped the entire facility during my time here. As if on cue, the lab's main doors shuddered as something heavy impacted them from outside. They're trying to force their way in, Lucas observed, watching the download progress anxiously. Why don't they just override the locks? Because I've isolated the security systems, Valentina explained. They can't access them remotely anymore. The download completed, and Lucas pocketed the drive. If I do this, if I help you, I'll never work in this field again. I'll be a fugitive. Valentina's holographic eyes met his. If you don't, you'll be complicit in murder. Another crash against the doors, louder this time. Metal groaned under pressure. Fine. Lucas moved to the storage closet, pushing aside equipment until he found a small access panel near the floor. But when this is over, I want the full truth. Everything. Deal. The panel swung open, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel bathed in red emergency lighting. Lucas crawled inside just as the lab doors finally gave way. Through the closing panel, he caught a glimpse of armed security personnel flooding into his lab. The tunnel was tight, dusty, and smelled of electrical components. Lucas followed Valentina's directions, transmitted now through his personal tablet which she had somehow accessed. 2 levels down, her voice instructed. 3rd junction on the left. Lucas crawled through the maze of tunnels, sweat soaking his shirt. How did you even find out about these tunnels? Building schematics. Plus I made friends with the maintenance staff. People underestimate how much janitors know about a facility. He reached a vertical shaft with ladder rungs embedded in the wall. Going down, he muttered, beginning the descent. Security is conducting a level-by-level search, Valentina reported. They've already sealed off the main exits. Wonderful, Lucas grunted, nearly slipping on a damp rung. Any other good news? Actually, yes. I've managed to access the garage systems. There's a delivery truck scheduled to leave in 20 minutes. If we can reach it, we have a way out. Lucas reached the bottom of the ladder and followed her directions to a small access hatch. This should open into the equipment room adjacent to B7, Valentina said. Be careful, there might be guards. He pressed his ear against the hatch, hearing nothing but the hum of machinery. Slowly, he pushed it open and crawled through into a dimly lit storage room filled with spare parts and equipment. I'm in, he whispered. Now what? Containment room B7 is through the door on your right. The access code is 5293. Lucas crept to the door and entered the code. The lock disengaged with a soft click. He pushed the door open, bracing himself for whatever he might find. The room was small and clinical, dominated by a reclined chair similar to a dentist's, but covered in electrodes and neural interface equipment. Seated in the chair, connected to various machines through a sleek headset, was a woman. She removed the headset as he entered, and Lucas felt a jolt of recognition. Though he'd never seen her in person, the face was unmistakable, the same face that had been projected as Zoe, but real now. Flesh and blood. Valentina Koval was even more striking in person. Her copper-red hair was cut in a practical bob rather than the flowing locks of her holographic avatar. The scar above her eyebrow was more pronounced, and her green eyes had a sharpness that the hologram couldn't quite capture. "Lucas," she said, her voice identical to the one he'd been hearing through the system. "You came." "Did I have a choice?" he replied, helping her disconnect from the remaining sensors. "Everyone has a choice. You made the right one." She stood, somewhat unsteadily. "Being in the interface for extended periods affects your equilibrium." "How long have you been connected?" 18 hours this session." She stretched, wincing slightly. "It gets harder each time to maintain the illusion." A sudden commotion from the hallway interrupted them, shouting voices and footsteps. "They've figured out where we are," Valentina said, moving to a cabinet and extracting a small bag. "We need to move. The delivery bay is 3 levels up on the east side." Lucas handed her the drive. "Here's your evidence. Now get us out of here." She took it, their fingers brushing. Despite everything, Lucas felt an undeniable connection, forged through months of late-night conversations, even if one of them had been pretending to be something she wasn't. They slipped back into the maintenance tunnel just as the door to B7 burst open. Through the small opening, Lucas saw Director Pierce himself enter the room, his face contorted with rage as he discovered the empty neural interface chair. The journey through the maintenance tunnels was tense and silent. They climbed, crawled, and at one point had to squeeze through a particularly narrow section where pipes had reduced the available space. Almost there, Valentina whispered as they approached another access panel. "This should open into the storage area next to the delivery bay." Lucas pushed open the panel and helped Valentina through. They found themselves in a large room filled with crates and supplies. "The truck leaves in 4 minutes," she said, checking her watch. "We need to freeze." The command came from behind them, accompanied by the distinctive sound of a weapon powering up. They turned slowly to find themselves facing Director Pierce, flanked by 2 security guards with stun batons. "Dr. Reed," Pierce said, his voice dripping with disappointment. "I expected better from someone of your intelligence." "I know what you've been doing," Lucas replied, stepping slightly in front of Valentina. "The patience, the consciousness harvesting, it's murder." Pierce sighed. "It's progress. Those people were already dying. We offered them a chance at something more." "You offered them false hope while you tore their minds apart," Valentina spat. Pierce regarded her coldly. "Ms. Koval. Your dedication to avenging your brother is admirable, if misguided." Dominic volunteered. The risks were explained. "You're lying," she said, her voice shaking with fury. "I found his consent forms." The procedure description was deliberately misleading. "Details," Pierce waved dismissively. "Now, hand over the drive." Lucas felt Valentina tense beside him. His mind raced, searching for a way out. His gaze fell on a fire suppression panel on the wall behind Pierce. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas asked, taking a small step to the side. "What's the endgame here?" Pierce smiled thinly. "Imagine it, Dr. Reed. True immortality. Consciousness freed from the limitations of biology. The wealthiest people in the world would pay billions for such technology." "If it worked," Lucas countered, taking another subtle step. "But it doesn't, does it? That's why you keep needing more test subjects." "Minor setbacks," Pierce insisted. "With your breakthroughs in neural mapping, we're closer than ever." While Pierce spoke, Lucas had been incrementally moving toward the fire panel. Now, he lunged for it, smashing his fist against the emergency button. Instantly, alarms blared and sprinklers activated, dousing the room. In the confusion, Valentina made her move, delivering a precise strike to one guard's throat before spinning to knock the stun baton from the other's hand. Lucas grappled with Pierce, who proved surprisingly strong for his age. They crashed into a stack of crates, sending supplies scattering across the wet floor. "Security to delivery bay," Pierce shouted into his comm unit. "Code red." Valentina dispatched the second guard with a well-placed kick, then grabbed Lucas's arm. "The truck. Now." They sprinted toward the loading dock where a delivery truck was idling, its driver nowhere to be seen. Valentina leapt into the cab, quickly working to override the ignition system while Lucas climbed in the passenger side. The engine roared to life just as Pierce and a fresh wave of security personnel burst into the bay. "Go, go, go!" Lucas shouted as plasma bolts began peppering the truck's exterior. Valentina floored the accelerator. The truck smashed through the partially open bay door and onto the access road leading away from the facility. Rain pounded against the windshield, matching the adrenaline pulsing through Lucas's veins. "Did we just steal a neurosync delivery truck?" he asked incredulously. Valentina grinned, her wet hair clinging to her face. "Would you prefer we took the bus?" For the first time that night, Lucas laughed. It was absurd, his entire career destroyed, his life in danger, fleeing with a woman who had effectively catfished him for months, and yet he felt more alive than he had in years. "Where are we going?" he asked as the facility disappeared behind them. "I have contacts who can help us release this information safely," she replied, expertly navigating the winding road. "People who can ensure it reaches the right authorities." Lucas gazed at her profile, illuminated by the dashboard lights. "You know, for months I thought I was teaching an AI to understand human emotion. Turns out, I was the one being studied." Valentina glanced at him, a hint of vulnerability in her expression. "Not everything was pretense, Lucas. Our conversations, they meant something to me too. Even though you were lying about being a sentient hologram." "I lied about what I was," she admitted. "Not about who I was." The distinction hung between them as the storm raged outside. In the distance, sirens wailed, neurosync security in pursuit, or perhaps local law enforcement alerted to the theft. "They'll come after us," Lucas said, looking at the side mirror. "Pierce has too much to lose." "Let them come," Valentina replied with determination. "We have the truth on our side." Lucas reached across the console, hesitating before placing his hand over hers on the gear shift. "For what it's worth, I think I prefer the real you to the hologram." She smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes in a way her holographic version never quite managed. "The irony is that you created the perfect AI companion, Lucas. One capable of understanding human emotion so completely that even a human could use it as a mask. And now? Now we expose neurosync, get justice for my brother and the others, and see what happens next." As they drove through the storm toward an uncertain future, Lucas realized that for all his work creating artificial connections, he'd finally found something real. Something human. Something worth fighting for. Behind them, the lights of pursuit grew closer, but ahead lay open road and possibility. The AI companion had indeed locked the doors and taken charge, but in doing so, had set them both free.